could have given up, but you didn't. You could have stopped believing, but you didn't. You could have kept living their expectations, but you decided to make this life your own. And in turn, you're here. Hello, everyone. Today we're meeting Shana Francesca. She is a keynote speaker, workshop facilitator, consultant, and entrepreneur. Hello, Shana. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Anna. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So let's start a conversation by diving into your journey of becoming the person you are today. What led you to discover your true passion in life? How did it start for you?
Yeah, so a little background information. I was born into an abusive household and raised inside of an evangelical Christian cult. And having experienced for such a huge swath of my life, right? I left when I was 26, both scenarios. Um, Having experienced deeply um, harmful relationship, unethical relationship, and really manipulative and harmful leadership, it's no wonder that when I left, I started seeking to understand how I could show up as myself in the world and what it meant to be an ethical person and what does relationship look like and how do we do that, right? And really just become human. Um, and so eventually it kind of led me to the place where I wanted to start my own business, and I thought, I have absolutely no idea what ethical leadership looks like. I have absolutely no idea what it is to be a great leader, right? And so like at 29, I embarked on this now more than 10-year journey of research and learning and studying and looking at organizations who are run in really beautiful ethical ways and who have exponential profitability and are driving innovation because of it. And so no wonder I became a scholar of intentional and ethical leadership.
Wow. Yes, and you also founded a company,
Yeah,
right? I just
yeah,
want you to
Concinnate.
elaborate more on what is
Yeah.
the main values it stands for and what is the vision for the company.
Yeah, absolutely. So the foundation of my work is really, when we get down to it, how do we build relationship, whether that be personally or professionally? It's all the same. It all comes from the same place. And that is from a combination of curiosity, respect, and accountability, right? And the combination of those three things leads us into ethical and reciprocal relationship, right? Because at its core,
Yeah.
relationship is meant to to exist with reciprocity, right? We're meant to give and take in equal measure. We're meant to honor that which we take, and respect and honor others' boundaries, and be curious enough to discover them, and be accountable when we violate them. All of these things are in play there. And so I realized throughout my work that I wanted to connect with leaders and with people in different ways. So I started out leading group coaching with a variety of types of business owners, entrepreneurs, and people who'd been in business for themselves for decades, um, and led really successful organizations, but really wanted to find a better way to connect with their people and grow their organizations. And it kind of exploded from there. So now I do consulting, and I've created a whole bunch of workshops. I'm always creating new ones,
Mhm.
depending on what organizations I'm working with and what they might need or want to focus on. I also offer them through my website, and I love delivering keynotes. Public speaking is something I absolutely love. I know most people hate it, but I love it. I love connecting with audiences in that way. So there's a variety of ways that I connect with people through my work. And I love that it gets to be, tailored to whoever I'm working with, whether it be an individual, because I do one-on-one coaching as well, or it be an organization in a variety of ways. Like one organization came to me and they're like, "Hey, what if you did a book club with our board?"
Mm.
And I was like, "That sounds great. Let's do it, right? Let's create this intentional book club, and let's start from the very top down, right?
Yes.
And make sure that we're all on the same page as far as our values." So I love the creative ways in which I get to work with clients.
Yeah, definitely. And I know your leadership uh, curiosity is about it's being intentional and ethical at the same time. And for a lot of us, sometimes people don't know why they doing certain things, or they just like running around on autopilot,
Yeah.
working 9 to 5, being kind of lost in this loop, I would say, and then not creating their life intentionally, and also not taking responsibility for what is already there and how it could become better. So for us to be intentional, we first have to be aware or mindful of what's going on and how are we feeling, what
Yeah.
are the emotions that come up to the surface. And is there any practices that helped you or maybe your clients to become more mindful in the present moment and be and really bring out the intention of what they're about to create, so they have the vision of what they receiving as the part of the action process?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really hard. Our lives are really busy, right? There's so much for us to do that
Mhm.
there isn't, it doesn't feel like there's space, and maybe there isn't space at first for
Mm,
us to feel our feelings, to let ourselves sit with
yeah.
our existence and how we feel about it and what we might want to change about it. But when we sit down and we take inventory of what our life, how our life exists now, as opposed to what we wish existed, when we can sit down and we can make either journal entries or make that list or however that shows up for you, then we can start to get clear on the steps we need to take to get from one to the other, or the steps that we can take to
Yes.
get from where we are now to where we want to be. And until we get intentional about it, it's really hard to make any change. So the first step starts with maybe meditation, right? Like starting really, really small. Let's get present with how we feel. And then let's also get present about how we wish we could show up in the world. And
Mhm.
then, a journaling practice, taking some time, even a few moments every day to sit there and write what comes up for you in your meditation. And then to really start asking ourselves before we take actions, what is my purpose here? Why am I doing this thing? Right?
Mm,
And to honor and hold that purpose, that reason that we want to do something, and make sure that it is helping to govern how we proceed through a moment. And it starts to help us to clarify, right? Because I think when we aren't intentional about or don't know our intentions about something, it's easy to say yes to things that don't align with our purpose and with our intentions because we haven't set them, right? And it's easy to say, sometimes to say no to things that actually align with our intention because we don't have space for them because we've said yes to too many things that don't align, right? And so when we get intentional, we actually release a lot of things that don't necessarily belong in our life. It doesn't mean they're bad or wrong, but
mhm.
they don't belong in our life because they're not aligned with who we want to be and how we want to show up. And so it's a really clarifying practice. And it also shows us the places in which we might need support and where we could build community around ourselves and we could free up our time in a variety of ways, right? So I've heard about groups of people doing things like carpooling, right? So, like 4 or 5 families will get together, and one day a week, each one takes everybody's kids to school, right?
Yes.
So that frees up some time.
Mhm.
There's other groups of people who've done dinner,
Mhm.
like a dinner situation where one day a week, each family takes making dinner for all of the families. And
Wow.
so, and it's like 4 or 5 families. So now that instead of making dinner every night of the week, each family is only making dinner one night a week for everybody, right?
Yeah.
And so it frees up so much extra time. Also, like finding ways to free up your time in ways of like childcare sharing.
Mhm.
Again, like once a week, one family watches all the kids on a Friday night so everybody else can go and do what they want to do, spend time with themselves, go on a date night, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So there's ways in which we could free up our time, which are not they're not quote unquote normal to us. They're not part
Mhm.
of our current lexicon of support. But
Yes.
when we get clear on what we want to happen in our lives and how we want to feel, now we can start to discover who in our life might also feel that way. and be
Mhm.
able to partner and create communities of mutual aid and support.
Yeah, definitely. And I think communities is a big part of the support system that we can build for ourselves. And of course, you also can help others as well, but it's kind of like comes hand to hand of you being able to also enjoy the benefits of being in the community.
Yes.
And it really helps mentally, emotionally as well, seeing that other people going through the same thing. 'Cause
Yes.
a lot of times we assume we're the only ones suffering in whatever situation it might be, but seeing that there are other people and there are ways to kind of like solve a problem or ease yourself into getting what you want, right? So why not taking advantage of it for
Yeah.
the better good of everybody involved, right?
Exactly, and the same thing can apply to our professional world, although we might not have as much control over our professional life.
Mm.
Um, but if we are a leader, right, we can then say, how do I create this kind of environment? How do I foster and empower people to create this kind of environment within this organization? Because then people will be able to free up their time to get creative and help. And creativity is what drives innovation, and innovation is what drives profitability, right? So, like when I say it's all tied together, right?
Mm.
Practicing intentionality in our personal lives helps us to show up as more intentional in our professional lives, and they directly feed one another. The same practices apply to both.
Definitely. And I think it's also important to create this right environment in your workplace,
Yeah.
especially if you're like a senior, like leader, CEO, or the one that is responsible for creating that environment. And yeah, like you just said, creativity drives innovation, and as a result, you're getting more profit. So it should be your priority to make sure that people are supplied with everything they need. If their needs are met, then they can give you more of their energy and time and desire to do what you want, like seeing the vision of the company, right?
Exactly. When we contribute to our people's thriving, right, then
Mhm.
they can contribute to ours. If our people themselves are not thriving, how do they have the energy to then contribute to our corporation or organization's thriving? They do not. They do
Right.
not. Right? They're pouring from an empty cup. They will burn out. They will leave. Right? And the cost of turnover is extremely expensive. Right?
Mm.
So if we instead took time to invest in our people, right? And so that they were invested in being with us longer term, right?
Yeah.
It becomes a very different thing, right? Instead of people leaving after being with us for a year or two, right? Now they're invested for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and who knows how long, as long as we're continuing to help foster their
Yeah.
creativity, help them and empower them to show up as their full selves so that
Mhm.
they know that they are seen, heard, honored, and valued, because that's what every human being wants and needs.
Yes, definitely. And yeah, like you also mentioned, there's something about us setting boundaries as well when we're in our personal life. Sometimes we don't know how to say no, and we always agree to too many things that really drains us out of energy of what's important, and then we kind of get lost in trying to be all things to all people, please
Yeah.
people around us, think of how we could be seen or what they think about me, right? So it's kind of very like distracts our focus from what's important.
Yeah.
And especially with a lot of distractions nowadays, TV, social media, like we tend to are really not being mindful of how we spend our time. So the way we manage our time on a daily basis is important, because what we choose to do today matters 5 years from today, right?
Yeah.
And of course, there are people who work in 9 to 5. There is always an excuse that they don't have time to do what they love or what they're passionate about. It's hard for them to create that time. But really, if you continue doing the same thing, nothing will change. Something has to change.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? those who are not satisfied or not fulfilled in their role that they playing in the position that they are at work, like how can they start creating more of a fulfilled life for themselves, or being more applying their desire and passion towards creating some kind of project, or maybe starting a hobby. So what are the strategy, I would say, for the everyday people to start doing that as something that is important?
Yeah. I think we have to start with saying the thing out loud, right?
Mhm.
Oftentimes we think someone should know how we feel, and how we want to show up because it seems logical. But what's logical to us is not logical to everyone else. And so I think you have to start with saying the thing out loud, going to your higher ups and saying, this is what, and you have to be really clear on what you actually want first, right? So you got to sit down and do that work for yourself,
Mhm.
and then say, this is what I would love, this is how I would love to be able to show up, this is what I would love to be able to do, and what I would love to be able to contribute to this organization, and see and take their temperature, see if they're interested and willing to hear you out and make space, or if there's the ability for them to make space within that organization for you to show up
Mhm.
that way, and start there. And you'll know pretty quickly, right? If it's a hard no, and then you have to ask yourself if that's a violation for you, if that's a hard boundary for you, if you can't continue on in this job without some kind of change, then that means you got to start looking for another one, right?
Mhm.
Another job, another place where there is the opportunity for you to show up in more authentic ways for
Mhm.
yourself. But you won't know until you ask, right?
Mhm.
And so I think we have to start with the vulnerability of asking, and we have to start with the vulnerability of clarifying what we actually want as best
Mhm.
as we possibly can, so that our leaders can be clear on how they might be able to make space for that or empower that to happen.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think first it is and foremost and to be clear, knowing what you want and really articulating that in the manner that other people know if they can really offer you that type of position or role to play in that company.
Yeah,
Or if, yeah, if something that is really hard to create space for, maybe, yeah, you should start looking for something on the side. Like sometimes I even think like starting a hobby, it's a good way to really to explore what is it that you love doing, or start some kind of project on the
yeah,
side, and then you will know more.
yeah,
Sometimes we don't know like the whole picture, but at least we have this desire. We know what we would love to do, like
yeah,
depending on our talents, skills, abilities, right? And if we don't have that outlet like in the daily life that we have right now, then we're supposed to make it a priority and create something for us that will provide us the space of creativity. Because I feel like every one of us has to be creative in one way or another to bring out those
yeah,
gifts. How else you going to discover them?
yeah. Yeah, and that's why one of the cores of my work is curiosity, and it has to be practiced in our personal life for it to be able to show up in our professional life, right? I do something called curiosity walks, and I recommend this to everyone. One of my favorite things is to just go on a long walk and have no particular purpose in mind, but along the way, if something catches my eye, but I set this intention going out, right? That something along the way is going to catch my eye,
Oh,
and
okay.
I'm going to think about it. And then when I get home, I'm going to learn either three new things about it or three things about it that because it's something entirely new to me. It could be a dandelion, it could be a caterpillar, it could be a butterfly, it could be a
Mhm.
tree, it could be any number of things. And you can always snap a quick photo of it so you don't
Mhm.
forget, or you can Google image search it so that you
Mhm.
can, quickly get some information about it. But one of the you'll see in the metaphors, well, because I'm not giving a speech now, but people will see in the metaphors in my speeches that they have come from, many of these stories have come from my own curiosity, have come from me learning three new things about poison ivy and three new things about dandelions. And I've learned a variety of other things about the living world. And it's so fascinating how much the living world has to teach us, that is right there at our fingertips. Um, back in the day, we had encyclopedias. We didn't have the internet. Now we have the internet, and we can find information so quickly from so many different sources, and it's so beautiful. But I think it's become so normalized in our life, we forget, and nature that's all around us, it's been so normalized in our life that we don't see it as magical and a teacher anymore, right?
Mm.
But when we get curious in that way, it fuels our creativity. It fuels the way we connect to the world around us. And that's where innovation comes from. Innovation is about finding new connections between things that may already exist or ideas that already exist, because there's really no new ideas. There's just iterations of those ideas,
Right.
right? And so to be able to do that, to make new connections, we
Mm.
have to actually be seeking new connections in the world, new understandings.
Wow, yeah, it's a nice practice. So if we just learn, let's say, like 3 things about something new today, every single day, then yeah, we can just, with our curiosity, we can stumble upon some information that really would fills us in a way that we never expected, or
Exactly.
maybe we'll receive new opportunities through really discovering that information.
Yeah.
So
And it
it's
doesn't just have to apply to nature, it can apply to people, right? So, like when I talk to leaders, I'm like, develop this practice of curiosity walks, but then apply it to your business and
oh,
learn 3 new things about the people who work for you. Find
mm,
somebody every day and learn 3 new things about them, right? And this, we've seen this be transformative, not specifically the 3 things, but we know leaders like the CEO of Campbell Soup, he did this and transformed their profitability in a relatively short period of time, right? By getting to know his workers, getting to know their ideas, their pain points, their thoughts on solutions, he was able to crowdsource
mm.
innovation and profitability for that organization. So we know that it works and it's really, really effective. It just takes time and it takes intention.
Yes, and also you have to be like really genuinely interested
Yes,
in learning that, not
yes,
just pretending that, this is something you should do, but
right.
wanting to do it. You have the,
Genuine curiosity.
yes.
Genuine curiosity. Yeah.
Because I think it matters. Sometimes people just ask you, okay, how you feeling? Or what's, I don't know, what's up today,
Yeah.
right? And they just ask because everybody asks. But if you really spend time and listen and talk to
Yeah.
that person and absorb that information, then you can learn from it and apply it in your life.
Yes, exactly, exactly. It has to come from a genuine place. You have to make space and time for it. It can't be like, okay, I'm gonna take 30 seconds and go learn 3 new things about this person, and then walk up to the person and say, "Tell me 3 new things about you." Absolutely not. Right? It comes through developing emotional safety for that person, creating emotional safety, um, having a conversation with them, asking them about the things they might be interested in, paying attention to the book that might be sitting on their desk or the
Mhm.
poster or the pictures on their walls, really getting curious about who they are and really being present with them in the moment in order to actually learn new things.
Wow, yeah, definitely. And I think all of those accountability, curiosity,
Respect.
and respect, those values, they kind of like set up the theme of the organization that would thrive. And if we really value what is important and how we can, because everything starts within yourself. You can't expect change from outside. So you should be the one being the change, right? And that also comes back to you being accountable or responsible for creating that. And of course, you won't be the only one involved, but with your willingness to work on yourself and doing what you can do, the best that you can do at this present moment, that's how you contribute to the better society to emerge,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and also like a lot of times we tend to kind of like find excuses, blame other people or situation of why something is not the way we wanted it to be. But really it's just starting with us taking that responsibility and being mindful and intentional every single day, because I feel like it should come as natural. So we have to practice it to the point that we don't think about it, really. It's just part of who we are. And we are happy to do it. And it's the way that our life will be constructed because of those values that we stand up on. And I think like a lot of times um, I think we just not deliberate in what we want to create, and that's why whatever comes, we just accept it, but we don't realize that we also are responsible for the change as well, you
Yeah.
know?
And it becomes easier the more that we learn how to build relationship and the more we build community
Yes.
around ourselves, the more intentional we can be, right? It's not meant to be a singular, isolated thing. The more we invest in curiosity, respect, and accountability, the more we will naturally create more ethical relationship in our life. And that will be founded in reciprocity. And then we will be building community and valuable relationships. And so it becomes a chorus of people supporting one another and
Mhm.
being supported by the rest of the living world rather than based on hyper individuality, right? And so I think that's also the key, is that it doesn't reside with and sit solely on our shoulders. The core of my work always goes back to relationship building.
Yeah, and I think building relationship, respect is a very important part, and trust also. Like this emotional safety that you mentioned, we usually, in the beginning of relationship, we want to make sure that this is the person that is, safe for me to deal with,
Yeah,
I would say. So
yeah,
we need to not only create that safety, but also being able to kind of like trust and see if the person is as ethical as you
yeah,
think he or she is, and
yeah,
give chance to really like build that relationship.
yeah,
So it comes back like reciprocity as you just mentioned, but also uh, with our intention, and emotional intelligence is important, because we have to, and I would say compassion. Like we have to feel what that person feels. We have to be able to understand. Of course, it's not going to be the same as that person sees the world or their perspective, but at least we have that understanding what they're going through,
yeah,
and being in their shoes, in our mind, knowing that this is important for them.
yeah,
So knowing what is important for that person
yeah,
and
yeah,
being genuinely interested and creating that safe space, it will be the foundation of the relationship
yeah,
that could bring you, that could be professional setting or romantic or whatever.
yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It always, once you start like seeing the connection, it always is sort of, as soon as you start talking about curiosity, you start talking about respect. And as soon as you start talking about respect
yes.
and curiosity, you start talking about accountability. And then it comes full circle back, because accountability requires curiosity, and empathy requires curiosity, and true connection requires curiosity, and learning understands curiosity, right? Which is the foundation of actually connecting. And then it requires respect, because we need boundaries, right? We don't get to just have access
Mhm.
to someone's entire life until we've actually created safety for them, which we establish through accountability, right? In
Mhm.
recognizing when we've done harm and taking accountability for that and responsibility for that, right? So they just feed each other consistently
Right.
as an ecosystem. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm so glad that we had that conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and wisdom. For those who would like to connect with you, how can they find you online?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on my website. It's www.consonate.world. You could email me at shana@consonate.world. Um, And definitely there's contact information. You can subscribe to my email list and all of that through the website. You can also find me on LinkedIn as Shana Francesca. I'm sure all of this will be tagged in the show notes.
Yes.
So those are the places you can find me quickest and easiest, and find a decent amount of information about me.
Yes, definitely. I'll include in show notes as well. And as we close today, what would be the thought for our listeners?
Invest in curiosity. You'll be surprised how much it'll transform your life.
Thank you. I hope you enjoy your day.
Thanks, you too.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, hit the subscribe button and share it with others. Stay tuned.